Adam Tapp knows death from both sides. For the past 16 years working as a paramedic in London, Ontario, he's become intimately familiar with it. On February 28, 2018, the 35-year-old woodworking hobbyist is at home with friend Mark Wilson. They attempt to try a new etching technique that requires the use of a microwave oven transformer. When Adam is momentarily distracted, the rods on the device start to bend and arc in his hand before accidentally touching. 1 second, he's talking to Mark. The next, he's being electrocuted. I remember just sort of being there, talking to Mark, and all of a sudden, a snap. It was the most excruciating thing I ever could have imagined. I wasn't cognizant of my surroundings or anything. The current just shut off all my senses. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything. Just these vertical, iridescent green bars, like cylinders of various sizes. I remember thinking, I'm being electrocuted. I can't breathe. I think I'm dying. And he is, for 11.5 minutes. According to every medical and clinical definition, Adam was legally dead. The next thing he realizes, he's in a prolonged state of falling before suddenly waking up in a place described as somewhere he had always been and had always belonged to. He looks around and finds himself suspended in a dark, inky blackness that is surprisingly warm and comforting. There's this nagging feeling that he's no longer Adam. He's not a husband. He wasn't dead. He wasn't anything. He was raw consciousness. Following this realization, he begins to feel an odd sensation, similar to gasoline on water, wash over him. The liquid that engulfs him is made up of strange geometric patterns, colors, and fractalizations that were somehow able to clearly communicate using emotion. The physical sensation is as if every atom he was made of was being pulled apart into everything. It was the most natural feeling in the world. There's also a strong and deep sense of love that came from the universe and the stark recognition that every living creature, including himself, was the universe. On the outside, a fortunate string of coincidences begin to unfold. Mark had taken a high-voltage safety course 2 weeks earlier, enabling him to quickly shut off the transformer before more damage was done. He immediately calls out to Tapp's wife, who is a cardiac nurse. In a matter of minutes, she begins CPR while Mark is on the phone with Adam's paramedic friend and colleague, who was only 2 blocks away. They arrive in time to defibrillate, ventilate, and get a pulse out of him. But in order to funnel the drugs needed to start his heart, they still need to drill a hole in his shoulder bone. After 2 defibrillations and a round of epinephrine, Adam Tapp is brought back from the dead. He remembers being lost in feelings of peace, love, and universal connectedness before being suddenly jolted. Surprised he's been electrocuted for the 2nd time, he's quickly shocked again. Racing for another jolt, he is suddenly and forcefully pulled or sucked back into his body. The first thing he senses is the smell of burned flesh. Looking down, he sees his hands are severely burned, and he's missing his left pointer finger. A nurse informs him that both hands are covered in 3rd and 4th degree burns, and his finger has been completely burned off in the accident. Then everything goes dark again. Shortly after being resuscitated, Adam slips into a coma for the next 6 hours. When he regains consciousness, he finds himself in the ICU, covered in blue and white tubes. He immediately notices his sense of time is a bit skewed. Everything was going in slow motion. But what he finds more surprising and generally off-putting is how foreign and not at home he feels in his own body. Despite knowing he had died, it felt like wearing an oversized costume. Missing a finger and covered in 3rd and 4th degree burns, he can't help but notice the smell and worry about losing consciousness again. He becomes vigilant of his breathing and how he smelled, which begins to make him uncomfortable. I just became so hyper-aware of my breathing, of my natural pheromonal smell. I also remember squeezing my arm and just feeling so not at ease in my body, like it was brand new, and I now got thrust into this ridiculous meat suit that is frail, urinates, defecates, and breathes. It was like being downgraded from a supercomputer to a Commodore 64. That feeling hung around for a couple of months, but it eventually passes and is replaced with feelings of calm and serenity. Those 11.5 minutes of blissful solitude could have lasted eons or 1 second. Time had zero influence or meaning on the other side. And while it was a positive encounter, there's still a hesitation about reading and listening to other people's near-death experiences. He needs time to process everything. After about 6 months, the urge to research what others have experienced after temporarily dying starts to build. Reading the thousands of accounts of people who have died and come back instills a feeling of belonging. There were all these people who have tried to categorize near-death experiences, what they represent, how long the transformation lasts, and I have to admit it's fairly accurate. In the 4 years following his near-death experience, Adam's outlook about life and death is a positive one. It's the most beautiful experience of his life, despite a strong love for life and being alive. I love doing things and experiencing happiness and irritation and frustration, and I really don't even know what stress is anymore. It gives you a wonderful peace of mind about what's relevant and what's not. This profound experience shifts his former perspective from feelings of sorrow and fear to that of peace and love. As a paramedic, he used to pity the dead. Now he's curious about them, where they are, what they're doing, and if they can see him. The certainty that life continues after death isn't even a question anymore. He knows what he experienced that night was real. There is nothing to be afraid of, nothing to be insecure about. There is no self-loathing, anxiety, stress, or hate on the other side. Being dead is about being nothing and being perfect at the same time.